The first thing Captain Lyra Dane noticed was how silent the bridge had become. Not peaceful. Not calm. Just silent, like the universe itself had paused to watch. Broken panels smoked softly, and the faint scent of burnt alloy lingered, metallic and sharp. Her ship, the Audacity, hung in the void, a twisted monument to the firefight that had just ended. Lyra lay flat on her back, staring at a viewport that no longer showed stars, but fragments of a shattered nebula. The Galari fleet, sleek, silver, inhumanly precise, had cut through her defenses with surgical efficiency. And now, they hovered, waiting, quiet, patient. She tried to rise. Her limbs betrayed her. "At least I won't have to write a report," she muttered, grimacing as the gravity of defeat pressed against her chest. A soft hum echoed across the bridge. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Too regular, too measured. And then, they appeared, Galari soldiers. Tall, elegant, armored in curves that seemed grown rather than forged, weapons humming with contained energy. She raised her hands, half surrender, half wave. They hesitated. Then one stepped forward and restrained her, not harshly, but firmly, with robotic precision. The corridors they led her through shifted around her. Panels rearranged themselves. Floors rose and fell as if alive. Lyra noted every detail out of habit. If she survived, she would catalogue this ship, or palace, later. Hours, maybe minutes passed. Time seemed irrelevant here. Finally, massive doors unfolded before her like petals in zero gravity, revealing a chamber washed in cold, white light. At its center stood a figure she already knew by reputation, Empress Sailari of the Galari. At first glance, Sailari looked almost human. Tall, composed, her features deliberate, sculpted with intent. But the subtle sweep of her ears, angled back and upward, marked her alien. They twitched slightly as she regarded Lyra, appraising. "I expected begging," Sailari said, voice calm, resonant, centuries in every syllable. Lyra shrugged, wrists lightly restrained. "I considered it. Seemed counterproductive." A low hum reverberated through the chamber, almost like a purr. The Empress descended the dais, moving closer. Lyra could see the faint iridescent patterns along her skin, each shift deliberate, each color a signal of thought. "Humans are curious," Sailari observed. "Facing annihilation with humor." "Defense mechanism," Lyra replied. "Also, terrible at reading rooms." Sailari's ears tilted slightly, and something about that gesture, the smallest signal of interest, made Lyra feel almost alive. Perhaps even safe. "You will speak," Sailari said after a pause. "Explain the anomaly." Lyra's strategist mind kicked in despite exhaustion. "Your fleet. It's exposed. Vulnerable. And your formation, it's inviting trouble." Sailari tilted her head. "Define trouble." Lyra pointed at the holographic display, a lattice of star routes, fleet vectors, and sensor echoes. "Not this. Not yet. But it's only a matter of time before something notices. Something big." A faint ripple passed over Sailari's composed face. Not fear, but recognition. Her hands danced over the projection, adjusting vectors. Red markers bloomed across star systems, warnings of approaching danger that the Galari had dismissed as cosmic interference. "If the war continues," Lyra said softly, "you won't just lose fleets, you'll lose worlds. And whatever's out there doesn't care who started it." Sailari stepped closer. "Why warn me?" "Because I live here, too. Technically." The Empress exhaled, a long, controlled release of air. "I underestimated your species." "You're not the first," Lyra muttered. Sailari gestured, dismissing the guards. The restraints disappeared. Lyra flexed her wrists, suspicious. No explosions. No pods with missing organs. Just trust, fragile and unsettling. "You will address the War Council," Sailari said. "They will want your head." "And if they get it?" Lyra asked, shrugging. "You'll survive." "Perhaps," Sailari said, voice edged with faint amusement. The council chamber was vast, layered with light patterns flowing along the walls like auroras trapped in glass. Generals from countless Galari clans occupied tiers above the central floor. Their ears flicked with curiosity, disdain, and instinctive caution. "This is the human," one demanded. "Why is it unrestrained?" another asked. "Because I promised not to run," Lyra quipped, earning confused glances. Larry raised a hand. Silence fell instantly. "Let it speak," she commanded. Lyra stepped forward. "Your alignment is elegant and suicidal. You've parked your armadas along predictable hyperlanes, efficient but visible. Gravitational wakes, hyperspace signatures, they'll be noticed. And if the anomaly out there is anything like I think, it will exploit that." A murmur rippled across the chamber. "Outrageous," someone shouted. "Let him finish," Larry said. Lyra continued. "This entity, the one humans have observed for decades but never understood, it feeds on conflict. It observes, adapts, and strikes when civilizations are divided. Stop the war, and you starve it. Continue, and it consumes everything." Red warnings pulsed across the map. For the first time, Lyra saw hesitation in the Galari Empress. "Then the war ends," she declared. The generals erupted in protest, but Solari's voice cut through. "Any who defy this command defy me." Lyra exhaled, letting humor return. "They're going to hate me forever." "You are already hated," Larry replied. "Now you are necessary." Hours later, humans and Galari worked side by side for the first time. Fleet exercises synchronized movements across hundreds of ships, predictable, repetitive, and boring, exactly what Lyra prescribed. Conflict, chaos, and sudden attacks would attract the anomaly. Monotony would make them invisible. And it worked. The anomaly lingered at the edge of mapped space, curious but uninterested, eventually drifting away without violence, bored by the predictable calm of two civilizations choosing cooperation over conflict. Lyra stood beside Larry, watching the stars. "We survived by being boring," she said. Larry tilted her head, ears relaxed for once. "We survived by listening." Outside, the mixed fleet moved in alignment, human and Galari ships side by side. The war had ended without a shot fired, without destruction beyond what had already occurred. And for the first time in decades, the galaxy felt quiet. "Now what?" Lyra asked. "Now," Larry said, voice calm, "we prepare for something that does not care about our past." Lyra smiled faintly. Not relief. Not victory. Purpose. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, the anomaly drifted, confused, outmatched by cooperation and patience, leaving two species with a fragile but undeniable hope. For the first time in her career, Lyra Dane understood. Courage wasn't charging into fire, it was standing still when everything in you wanted to run. The silence did not last. Not in space, not when the universe still held secrets waiting to strike. Captain Lyra Dane stood beside Empress Larry on the observation deck of the Galari Palace, eyes fixed on the shimmering blue-green planet below. Civilization bloomed in light and motion, unaware that the war they had just avoided was only a prelude. "You feel it too, don't you?" Larry asked, voice calm but steady. Her long ears twitched subtly, picking up vibrations invisible to humans. "Something has changed." Lyra squinted at the starfield. "I do. The anomaly, what we've been calling it, didn't retreat entirely. It's waiting, learning." Solari's gaze didn't leave the stars. "You were right to stop the fleets. Its pattern suggests observation, not attack. But it won't remain passive forever." A soft alarm echoed from the deck's control panels. Not loud, but insistent. Lyra moved forward, fingers flying across the interface. Sensor readings were spiking, subtle distortions across multiple dimensions of space. The anomaly's signature wasn't just cosmic, it was almost sentient. "It's awake," she said. "Yes," Larry replied, her posture rigid, calculating. "And it is curious." The command room hummed behind them as officers scrambled to understand the readings. Human analysts muttered technical jargon while Galari tacticians adjusted predictive models. Lyra ignored both. She needed clarity. "What does it want?" she asked, almost rhetorically. Larry tilted her head, ears flattening in thought. Not what you think. It does not attack blindly. It evaluates, records, anticipates. Conflict feeds it. Cooperation does not. Lyra's brow furrowed. So boredom saved us, but it can still learn. Adapt. Solari's eyes glimmered. Precisely. And it will not forgive mistakes. Hours later, Lyra sat in the war room with Larry and her inner council. Holographic projections filled the chamber, each layer representing a civilization, a fleet, or an anomaly in space-time. The joint human-Galari fleet hovered in formation, ready but restrained. A Galari admiral spoke first, voice crisp and metallic. We cannot treat this as a fleet engagement. Its patterns are not military, they are observational. It responds to stimuli in ways we cannot predict. Which means, Lyra said, leaning forward, we have to be uninteresting. Repetition. Predictability. Boredom. That's how we survive. The humans in the room exchanged glances. A human commander muttered, boring doesn't feel like survival. It does, Lyra replied, eyes scanning the projections. We've trained for war our whole lives. This isn't war. This is patience. Discipline. Control of reaction. Larry studied her closely. Humans are strange, she said softly. You find elegance in chaos, and safety in monotony. Habits are everything, Lyra said. Especially when someone, or something, is watching. The council fell silent. Outside, the mixed fleet moved in slow, methodical patterns, each ship's trajectory calculated to avoid triggers the anomaly might respond to. Lyra felt an unfamiliar tension in her chest. Unlike battle, this required waiting, observation, subtlety, a mental endurance she wasn't sure she possessed. Days passed in a quiet rhythm. Ships traced repetitive orbits. Sensors hummed. Data streamed endlessly across the Galari Palace and human command hubs. Lyra worked alongside Larry, the alien empress whose composure never faltered, even when the anomaly made subtle movements detectable only by advanced sensors. Then the first sign of intelligence appeared. A probe, tiny and nearly invisible, drifted into mapped space. Lyra spotted it before anyone else. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't fleeing. It hovered, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, scanning everything in its range. It's testing us, she whispered to Larry. Larry inclined her head. And we are boring enough. For now, Lyra replied. Her hands danced over the interface, sending streams of false signatures, maneuvers, fleet positions, sensor readings, designed to create the illusion of activity while maintaining repetition. We're setting traps made of nothing. Solari's ears twitched. You call that strategy? I call it survival, Lyra said with a faint smile. And learning. Sometimes, the best defense is invisible movement. The probe pulsed once, twice, then vanished. All systems returned to normal. But everyone in the chamber knew, the anomaly had noticed them. And now, it was aware of the deception. Weeks of careful monitoring followed. Human and Galari crews adjusted to the rhythm, almost ritualistic, almost hypnotic. Lyra and Larry convened daily, predicting not what the anomaly would do, but what it expected them to do, and then doing the opposite in subtle ways. One evening, as the observation deck bathed in the soft glow of a distant nebula, Larry spoke. Do you realize what we are attempting is unprecedented? Lyra leaned on the railing. Yeah. Most humans would call it insanity. Larry allowed a hint of amusement to show. You thrive on impossible odds. I've survived worse, Lyra replied. And I like quiet challenges better than loud explosions. Solari's long ears shifted in a gesture that suggested contemplation. You remind me of the humans from the early colony wars. Resourceful, unpredictable, resilient, dangerous if underestimated. Lyra smirked. Dangerous is just another word for prepared. The anomaly, drifting at the edge of known space, watched. Sensors picked up faint distortions, curious, probing, calculating. It did not attack. It observed. And Lyra realized something terrifying. It would continue observing until it found a reason to act. Or until it concluded humanity and the Galari were irrelevant. Then came the first direct signal. A message, silent, encrypted, almost elegant in its simplicity. It wasn't a threat. Not yet. It was a test. Sailari decoded it first, her fingers moving in impossible gestures over the projection interface. "It's not communicating through conventional channels," she murmured. "This is cognition. Observation through manipulation of probability fields. It is intelligent." Lyra frowned. "So the boring routine isn't enough anymore?" Sailari shook her head slightly. "It is enough for now. But it is learning. We must adapt, faster." Lyra's mind raced. If this entity could interpret strategy and behavior, then every action, every inaction, became data. Survival required predicting its predictions, a mental loop with no end. Her eyes scanned the projections again. "We make mistakes. But not out of ignorance. We make mistakes deliberately." Sailari tilted her head. "And why would we do that?" "Because it will expect perfection. Imperfection is harder to analyze." Sailari's eyes sparkled faintly. Clever human. Risky human. Over the next cycle of rotations, Lyra implemented what she called the dull pattern maneuvers. Mixed fleets repeated formations, alternating schedules, transmitting false telemetry, and even deliberately performing minor errors that were too insignificant to matter but enough to confuse the anomaly's calculations. The anomaly responded. Its distortions shifted, then stabilized. Observers noted a subtle change in behavior. It lingered, then withdrew slightly, hesitant. Lyra allowed herself a quiet grin. "We're teaching it patience," she whispered. Sailari's ears twitched. "Or frustration. Both are weapons." The calm lasted for several rotations. Lyra and Sailari spent hours analyzing, predicting, adjusting. And yet, the entity persisted at the edge of mapped space, silent but aware. It waited, watching, calculating. One day, the anomaly made its first aggressive move. A minor fleet engagement was simulated, a test, not real combat, but the anomaly's sensors and distortions amplified, subtly nudging both human and Galari movements into more chaotic patterns. Lyra noticed immediately. It wants conflict. Even artificial. Even controlled. It's curious about us in practice. Sailari's face remained calm, but her voice was sharp. "Do not give it satisfaction." Lyra nodded. "Then we go slower. Flatter. Repeat. Boring. Every move must be smaller than it expects, duller than its calculations can reward." The days became a tense rhythm of repetition, anticipation, and subtle manipulation. Fleet patterns traced the void in loops, human and Galari commanders learning the new meaning of control, not through firepower, but through predictability, observation, and the quiet art of survival. By the end of the month, the anomaly's signals began to weaken. Its interest waned, the patterns flattened. Lyra and Sailari watched as the entity drifted farther from the mapped space. No attack, no signals, only quiet observation from a distance. "You think it learned?" Lyra asked. Sailari's ears tilted forward. "It learned that not all conflict is worth engagement. That even the cleverest predators cannot force cooperation from those who refuse to react to provocation." Lyra let herself exhale. "So, we survived by being boring. And tricky. And disciplined," Sailari added. "Do not forget that. Your species thrives on unpredictability, but discipline saved it." Lyra smiled faintly. "Next time, we'll try fun." Sailari inclined her head slightly. "Fun may not survive in space. But curiosity always does." Outside the observation deck, stars moved in their eternal rhythm. Humanity and Galari had survived not by firepower, not by dominance, but by patience, cleverness, and the quiet courage to stand still while the universe watched. And somewhere beyond the rim of known space, the anomaly drifted, still observing, still curious, leaving the galaxy to learn that even in silence, bravery could reshape destiny.